Good morning, everyone. My name is Judy Blake, and I am the Leadership and Advocacy Coordinator for Family to Family Network. We are in Houston, Texas, and we are so happy to be having our session 3 of our Leadership and Advocacy Training Program. I want to welcome you all. If you could, please sign in the chat box with the name that you registered with. If you would like to remain private, please private message me your first and last name so I can mark you as present. I thank you so much for joining us, especially on a Saturday morning. I know it's not easy, but it's wonderful that you all are dedicated to learning, and we truly, truly appreciate it. I want to introduce Christina Zavala, my
Good
right
morning.
hand, and who I could not do this job without. Christina has been with Family to Family Network for several years. She is bilingual, she's dedicated, she's amazing, and I just love working with her. So this is being recorded, and I will have a copy of the recording available to you next week. If you could, please hold your questions until the end, or you can write them in the chat box. If you prefer to remain anonymous, just send me your question, and then we'll make sure that we ask our presenters. There will be a survey link posted in the chat box. And one of the ways that we have these programs is through funding through the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities. Funding is really, really important to us as a nonprofit. So it's important that you fill out those surveys because we want your honest feedback. We learn and we grow from that. So we are going to take a picture. So for those of you who want to show your face, great. If you want to block out your name, no worries. If you're having a bad hair day, I understand, but we'd love to see your smiling faces if you can, because I do put this on social media, and it's really just to promote the wonderful work that we do at Family to Family Network. So 1, 2, 3, and there we go. Okay, so I'm still having trouble letting Jennifer in. I just can't figure out that one. So what I will do is look in her profile and see if I can find a phone number. It's really weird that I don't have it in there. So I'd like to introduce our first presenter. Oh, first off, how could I forget Mary Jane Williams, who I would not be, I know she hates when I say this, but I would not be the woman and the advocate I am today without Mary Jane Williams.
Thanks, Judy, for those kind words you always share. Hey, Jennifer. Jennifer is on our board. So anyway, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here this morning. I learned from the best, and you're going to get to hear from her as well this morning. And I learned so much from my good friend Charlene. And I'm honored that she's here to help us out with our leadership and advocacy program. And so enjoy this morning. I probably am going to step out for a few seconds, but I'll be back a little bit later in the morning. So thanks all for being here.
Thank you, Mary Jane. So our first presenter, Zooming all the way from Louisiana. So I have yet to make it to New Orleans. One of these days, yeah, I know.
Come on ahead.
One of these days, I need to get there.
We're waiting for you, Judy. We're just waiting for you to be
here. Absolutely. Absolutely. You betcha. I need my beignets, you know? Absolutely. So, yes, and thank you, Jennifer Salkich, for being present today. And thank you for your devotion and all you do for Family to Family Network. We love having you on our board. So thank you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Charlene Comstock Galagan is an extraordinary presenter. She is brilliant. She really helps you to think. She helps you to really get the wheels turning in your brain, and you will be inspired. and you will be challenged, but it's all good. So many, many thanks to you, Charlene Comstock Galagan.
So much, Judy. I have to echo what Mary Jane said. You always give the most wonderful introductions, and
Well, it's heartfelt, and I mean it.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, and I want to say good morning to everyone, and to let you know that I am going to do my best to continue to do the screen share so that you can see the slide in a slide format. But if something looks
Yeah, you
funky,
look great now. It's great.
if it looks wrong, somebody needs to tell me, and I don't mind being stopped at all.
Yeah.
So
do you want people to hold for questions? Yes.
Yeah, like you said, is fine. But if there's some kind of technical glitch,
Absolutely.
let somebody speak up quickly so
We'll
that we
let
can
you
fix
know.
it for you. Okay, good. So what I was invited to work with you guys on today is the concept of building belonging. And so I think a lot about this because, well, for lots of reasons, but the one that's top in my mind at the moment is that I'm always wondering, why is this so difficult? This seems to be a bedrock of all the major religions, right? So if that's true, why are we still having such a struggle in our communities when I see that the church parking lots and the synagogue parking lots and the mosque parking lots are all full of people, and we're all kind of learning the same lesson? So that's curious to me, and I just want to put that in the back of your mind for a minute. Why is this so hard if it seems to be such a pervasive belief of everybody? So what I want to offer by way of beginning is to say that this is going to be a as much as possible interactive. I want to invite you to participate, and I want to invite you to start by listening to something that many of you may be too young. I'm looking at the grid over here. Many of you may be too young to remember, but let's listen right quickly and see what we can get. Here we go.
Pull it in, and it's all fixed. Let's do that. Why are you doing it, Julia?
Charlene, what are you?
Can you not hear the sound, Judy? Can you
No.
not hear the music? Oh,
No.
gosh. Okay. I don't know how to fix that.
Okay.
So I'm going to move on.
Okay.
So let me here. This is not going to suffice in the biggest way that I would like it to, but what I'd like you to do is listen to this for 1 second, and then in the chat box, if you know where this music originated, type it in the chat box. Here we go. You ready?
Yep.
Please don't mute. Don't turn your sound down and be scared of me. My voice is not good, but I'm doing it anyway. Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Okay, Wendy, Jennifer, you guys know that came from the TV show Cheers. Others know that also. What is the main message of that song? Where do you want to be?
Where everybody knows your name.
You want to be where everybody knows your name. That's right. It's community that's the focus, right? And so what I want to put our minds on is this is a song that resonates with many, many people when they hear it. It's easy to relate to this desire to be where everybody knows your name. And therefore, what I want that to be our basis. And so it's going to be my invitation to you to participate, have some fun. You're in charge of what you feel, think, say, or do. And know that you have each other as resources. And what I mean by that is that when you meet, and you've already met, I'm sure, before. Judy, are we on the first session, or has everybody met?
We had our first session. Our second session was postponed
Okay,
because of our lovely winter storm.
no kidding.
And just since you brought that up, the second session has been rescheduled for April 17th. I had that in the email, so please put that on your calendar.
Perfect.
So you are our third session, but really this is the second time.
The second time people are together. So I
Yes,
want to remind you that now that you've met each other, what you've done is you've met everybody in each person's network, right? So think of the web that you've created in terms of resources. If there needs to be a ramp built somewhere, somebody in this group knows somebody who knows how to build a ramp. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? We have deep resources, and we should be asking for help with people and from people. So use each other as resources, ask for help when you need it. And here we go. So another basis of what we're going to do today is coming out of the belief and research that says that grown-up learners, adult people like you need to connect your personal knowledge and experience first in order to learn. You need to connect to that to learn new information, right? Does that resonate with people? Do you see how that could be helpful to connect personal knowledge and experience as you learn new info? P.S. This is also true for students. It's also true for kids. So don't also put this in the back of your mind. The more we connect our new learning with our personal knowledge and experience, the better we learn the new information. So we are going to make all the connections as the little scary person in the top of the slide is shouting. We're going to try to make them all. So the question that I want to address to you with as a beginning is, in your mind, where does belonging exist for people without question? Most often, let me say that.
Would you like people to just write that in the chat box?
Or they can speak up, it's fine, either way.
Okay.
I mean, are they able to unmute themselves, Judy?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they can speak up. I'm happy to hear or
Sure.
read.
And what was the question?
Where does belonging exist without question?
We have family, home, neighborhood.
Okay. Wow. If neighborhood is true, whoever that's true for, you need to do the happy dance. And most often, as you are looking at these pictures, you will see the belief that I'm holding and moving from is that with belonging primarily exists in families. I don't often get associated through our work with a family that says, I really can't wait to get rid of this kid. Is everybody with me so far? You good? Okay, head shakes are good. If you have questions, jot them into the chat box. So here is where I want you to call on your experience. And Judy, if you could, as you have in the past, could you make some notes about what people are saying? And I'll also try to get it in
Yes.
on the on the slide. I think I might not be able to do that. So what I want you to give me is one word to describe your experience of belonging. You may have a group of people or a place where you know that you belong. So if you could unmute yourself or type into the chat box one word to describe the feeling that you experience in the place where you know you belong. What are those feelings? So if you're going to speak your word, we need you to unmute yourself.
I can read you what they've been typing. It's safe, peace, neighborhood, acceptance, happy, relaxed, country.
And you can feel and be yourself.
You can feel and be yourself.
Okay, safe, peace, neighborhood, relaxed, happy. You can feel and be yourself. The person who can feel and be themselves in the place where they belong. What, I understand that description. What is the feeling when you can be yourself? What does it feel like to you?
You feel happy, you feel comfortable.
Okay, happy, comfortable. Good. Anybody else? What is a feeling to describe the feeling that you get in the place where you belong?
You are accepted without any inquiries. You just are accepted and welcomed.
Okay, and who am I talking to?
This is Josefina. Nice to meet you.
Josefina. Okay, nice to meet you too. Josefina, is that true for you? You are
Yes.
accepted in that place?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because when you spoke it, you spoke the words you are rather than I am.
Well, but it's just the way I phrased the question, or the
Yes.
answer, I should say.
Yes. And so what I want to recommend is as much as possible, especially in your advocacy work, that you speak from the position of I if you're saying something that's true for you.
Oh, okay.
Right? Is more powerful, Josefina. It
Okay.
has more punch.
Okay.
Es más fuerte. Okay? You with me?
Claro, I understand English and
Okay.
Spanish, Charlene.
Okay, perfecto. It's just an opportunity for me to practice. Okay, good. So anybody else, one word that describes your feeling in the place where you belong?
Strong.
You feel strong. Okay, good. Anybody else?
I said free because I feel like I don't have to worry about what I say or what I do.
Excellent. So you've experienced freedom. Yes. Jennifer, do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question there?
Sure.
What are you free from that in other places you are bound by?
I think free from worry about what people will think.
Free from worry about what other people will think. Okay, put all of this in your boiler pot, everyone, because I want to go to a second question, and that is, could you tell me the name of the place or the group or wherever it is that you belong? Which group are you thinking of when you think about this question that we're talking about now? What was your group? Do we have anything in the chat?
Yes, there's one person that said Master Gardener Organization.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Master gardeners, or a group of people that you've
Right.
joined voluntarily. Nice. Okay, who else? What was your group?
Another person said family.
Okay, family is your group. Are there others that chose family? Show of hands in the,
Yes.
okay, lots of family, and that's a common thing.
Another
Okay,
person
so,
says events from Hope for Three, the organization.
okay, good. So another organization, a group that you've joined voluntarily. Nice. Okay, others?
Lend program.
Okay, lend program. Excellent. Nice. You found your people there.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. Okay. Anybody thinking of church?
It hasn't come up here.
Okay, I know in the South, we are some church going people. So I often get the people to say church, my church community is the place where, and certainly family. Does everybody sort of get that, how family would be a place that some people feel like this is where I belong, regardless, right? Okay, so we belong in some places and we get a feeling when we're there. We're going to move to a separate kind of an experience, which is the following. Have you ever been left out of something? Now, if you went to elementary school in second grade, you might, if you're a female child, you might have gotten a note from your friend who said, "You are not my best friend anymore. This other girl is now my best friend," right? That is an experience of having been left out as a child. If you're a young person, and it was a time when your peers were getting automobiles, and there was a car full of people going for a ride, and they didn't stop in front of your house, but you knew they went riding, that is an experience of feeling left out, right? I have a friend whose husband has decided that she is no longer the love of his life that he said she was in the past, and he is involved with somebody else. That is a very adult sort of experience of being left out. And there are others, obviously. I'd like you to think of a time when you have experienced being left out yourself. And let's have one word that describes that feeling. So just unmute yourself and speak up.
Okay, one person said heartbroken.
Okay,
sad,
heartbroken,
sad,
Angry.
angry, absolutely. That person is very very polite.
Yeah, worthless.
Yeah, worthless. Okay.
I'd like to add devastating.
Devastated. Okay.
Insecure.
Yes, yes. Insecure. Okay. Can I ask a follow-up question to the person who used the word insecure? And the question is, what is the feeling that is under that label of insecure? What is the feeling experience of that?
Well, it was me.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Carry on, Christina.
It leaves you thinking that something is wrong with you. Like, what is it that is wrong with me?
What is wrong with me? Okay, everybody who's here today, that is the bottom line question. So, Christina, thank you for diving us right down to that bottom line.
Right.
In the past, when I've done this with others, these are some of the words that they have come up with for being, for belonging and for being left out. If you notice in the being left out column, many of those words are the same words that you've come up with as well, right? So what can you understand from having generated your own list and then from looking at this list? What kind of a conclusion can you come to? And please just unmute yourself and speak right up. This is, I will say, a little bit of a challenge because a lot of people do not have their video on and I can't see them as they speak, and it helps me a lot in this work if I can see you. So if you're at all willing, please, please turn on your video.
One participant wrote unworthy.
Yes, yes, yes. That unworthy label is a very good descriptor of the question that Christina asked, which is what's wrong with me, right? That bottom line feeling of something is not right with me, something fundamentally wrong. So once again, I'm gonna bring us back to the a moving forward question, which is you've generated a list and now on the screen, you're looking at a list that was generated by a different group. You see a lot of overlap there. What conclusion can you draw by seeing that there's this much overlap in your experience and some other group of people that you don't even know somewhere?
I would say that, I mean, these feelings are just really universal. I mean, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you have the same responses.
Jennifer, thank you. It doesn't really matter who you are, where you're from, what age you are, except that I will tell you this. When we do this exercise with young people, adolescent people, and we ask a follow-up question, which is this: what would you do if your whole school experience fell under the category of these words of that describe being left out? What would you do? What do you think young people say to that question? What would you, well, first of all, what would you do? You, your own personal self. Hi, Annie. I can see you.
I would probably just withdraw into myself. You know, I would just be like, well, I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody who's on my side, so I guess I'm the only one who has to be on my side.
Yeah, so I'm alone. I'm going to withdraw into myself. That might be what Jennifer would do, and others of you might share that that is something that might hold true for you as well. Anybody have a guess as to what teenage people say when they experience this column of being left out, these feelings and experiences?
I think the biggest thing when they feel unworthy, shame, lonely, hurt, it brings up the thoughts of suicide for a lot of teens.
That's what they say. That is what they most often say they would do. Now, there are other responses that some kids do beforehand, because let me tell you this, as Jennifer has said, these are universal feelings and experiences. People must get the feelings and experiences that are listed in that first column of belonging somewhere. So if they're not getting it in their family and they're not getting it in their school, they're going to go, once they get old enough, they're going to go and get it somewhere. They want to feel connected, authentic, or real. They want to feel useful and comfortable and loved, like they've accomplished something, like people see them for who they are. They don't have to worry, as Jennifer said, about being judged by others because they are accepted, as other people have said here. So where do you think young people go to find this if they can't get it in their school and they can't get it in their family? Or they can't get enough of it to make a difference? Where do they go? You all know this.
One person wrote drugs.
Yes. Sometimes they go to substances that provide them and the communities that get those substances and deal those substances because they get the feelings that they're looking for.
Or the internet or gangs. That's what they're saying.
Correct. They go in the street. They go to the gang. They're going to get all these things in the gang. Now, stay with me here. Judy, is it fast? Would it be fast for you to answer this question? Are all of the people in this group in it because they have some kind of connection with a person with a disability, either
Correct.
young or old?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So everyone, let's go back and think about the possibilities for people who are either mobility impaired or kids who are cognitively impaired. And what are their options when they are getting experiences in school, which is where they might spend the majority of their day, that result in feelings of being left out? All of those feelings in the list that you made. What are the options for kids who are mobility impaired or cognitively impaired, and they're dependent upon other people to arrange what comes next for them? What are their options to get connected and to create belonging for themselves?
The internet is what one person answered.
Okay, possibly on the internet. If that is something that works for the person.
Stalk or cyber stalk those who rejected them.
Okay, and yes, and so let me try to restate the question because it seems to me I'm not making myself clear what I'm asking. Think of the person with the disability that caused you to get into the advocacy field, and tell me, what do you think there is a range of options for people in those situations to create connectedness and belonging for themselves if the situation that they are in is not doing it, if they are experiencing being left out on an ongoing basis? In other words, how difficult would that be for a person with a disability?
Very difficult, I would say, for my son, since he's nonverbal. There's not a way for him to feel connected. He reacts with behaviors he shouldn't.
Okay, that's the arena that I'm going to, is that what we have done is, while we've made progress with kids with disabilities, we have not made it so that connectivity and belonging is at the basis of what we do, right? Yet,
And one of the biggest things that they will experience also a lot of isolation.
yes, and isolation leads to feelings of unworthiness, being ashamed of who you are, being lonely, hurt, sad, feeling alone, as you guys put in your list.
Charlene,
So-
one person private messaged me very hard and difficult, and another one wrote insurmountable.
Insurmountable. In the past, when I've been thinking about this question, I have hoped that one day I would see an entire line of kids with disabilities of every kind walking out of a school because they had just about had enough of the isolation, the loneliness, the disconnection that's going on, right? it's a fantasy that I'm making up in my mind, of course, but it's not beyond reality, because those of you in Texas who know the ADAPT group, this is a grown-up group of people who often are, protesting systems where people end up feeling all of these isolating kinds of feelings and experiences, and where just having an everyday life is insurmountable, right? The complications that are there, if the bus is inaccessible, that it might as well be Mount Everest for a person in a wheelchair if the bus is inaccessible. It is just not possible. 2 inches can be the size of Mount Vesuvius, right? So what I want us to take a look at from a high point of view is, what is it about connection that is important, and how do we go about creating it and also advocating for it, right? So that's sort of the jumping off point into what you're doing in this group and what you're learning, the skills that you're learning in advocacy. Where should they sit? Where should their root be? And the root should be in making connections and belonging for people, right? And for asking people, how do you want to be connected? With whom? Under what circumstances, right? Of course, we ask, what does the person want? Even we ask in the best way that we can, even people who we say are nonverbal, we try to find out by virtue of watching behavior, what does this person want and what do they not want? And how do we think we know that, right? So we work very deep with people whose communication is mostly different than ours and many other people's in the world. So again, noting that what you have talked about and thought about here so far is that acceptance, belonging, and community are the ABCs of inclusion, but also of advocacy work on behalf of people with disabilities. Judy,
Charlene?
you have a chat? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm going to read it if that's okay with the person who wrote it. Okay. One person wrote, but I have autism, and back when I was a teenager, I got banned from some online role-playing communities that I have invested a lot of time in, creating characters for the setting and playing those characters. I felt heartbroken, and I cyberstalked the mods who banned me for a while afterwards. I know not to do that now, but I did do it back then. I don't know what mods are. Am I supposed to? I apologize.
Yeah, I think it's suffice it to say those would be the other players.
Oh, the other players. Thank you.
Yeah, who were banning the person on our call.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
And
yes.
thank you for writing what you wrote. I really appreciate your openness, your honesty, and for sharing that with us, because this is a safe place. There are no wrong answers. There are no wrong feelings. And what you have said is probably how many people feel. Thank you.
Yes, that real experience of being heartbroken and rejected and disrespected and not maybe worthy enough for others to work with you in a way that you could continue to participate, where they would not have to use a mechanism called banning, right? And that's what we want, is for people to stay connected long enough to work out the conflicts, because conflict will arise. Everybody already knows on this call for sure that conflict is here to stay. It's not something that we can fix or make go away. It is a growth mechanism. Conflict can spur growth and change, of course, if we know how to negotiate it, right? So we are really talking about staying in it long enough, as the person who wrote about the online role playing said, to maintain acceptance, belonging, and community. So let's look at from an advocacy point of view, what are some ways to explain to or show people what belonging means? So when you look at the top picture and you see the word inclusion, you can just assume that that word also means belonging, right? And so what I'd like you to do is look at that top picture and see, understand what is the visual trying to represent. And somebody describe that visual to me the best way you can. Just tell me what you see. You can start with the words, I see. I'm giving you the biggest platform I can here to help you get in this and participate. So what do you see in that time?
No matter what colored dot that you are, it doesn't matter where you end up in the circle.
Okay.
Like in
Good.
the lower, in the lower pieces, it's sort of all defined by what color dot you are where you go. But in the top, it doesn't matter.
Okay, perfect. Jennifer, will you work with me a little bit on this? Do you mind me asking you some follow-up questions? Okay, so go back to looking at the picture, and you have explained what your thoughts are about what the picture means. Now I want you to go even more basic and tell me what you see. What do you see in that picture? Describe it to me as if I can't see.
It's a bunch of different colored dots in a circle.
Be more specific.
Circle. Some of them, a lot of them are green. Some of them are yellow. Some of them are blue. Some of them are red, but they're all just intermixed in the circle together.
Okay, so I'm going to say back to you what you said, and you tell me if I'm right. You said you see a circle with a bunch of green dots and then fewer dots that are red or yellow or blue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, other people, is that what that picture shows? Is it a circle with green dots, red dots, yellow dots, and blue dots of various numbers?
I want to say, one person wrote, I see color balls and green dots together.
Okay, good. Somebody else.
Okay, it's Annie. I want to say green. Hi, I want to say green is the majority people in the door on the circle, and the outside, like red, blue, yellow, they are minority people in the outside. So they kind of like stand outside. They couldn't get in the door. That's what I see. And second one is green one is a group, and those colors is a group, and this group people still cannot get in, but those colors, the dots, they together. Right?
Okay, Annie, but tell me just the top one right now.
Oh, top one. Okay.
Top one. Just the top one. What do you see?
It's everybody included together, no matter what kind of color or your ability mixed together.
Okay, perfect. So every dot is within the circle where there's belonging, right? So now let's go, as Annie has done, and let's go catch up with Annie, into the one that, the circle that demonstrates being left out or being excluded, right? So somebody, again, tell me, what do you see? What do you see? Not what do you think about it? What do you actually see with your eyes?
In which picture?
Segregation.
The exclusion picture.
Got it.
What do you see? Start with, go to the exclusion picture. Who am I talking to?
Nedra, segregation.
Okay, Miss
One
Nedra.
circle that's on the outside.
Go to the exclusion picture, the one on the far left at the bottom. You see
Okay.
that? All right,
It's the
start
same
with,
thing.
start
It's the
with,
same thing. You got the ones with the colors on the outside and only the green are on the inside.
okay, good. So you're saying this, correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying, I see a circle with all the green dots on the inside.
Yes.
And what else?
And the other colors are on the outside. So it would, in my mind, I'm thinking that the green dots are showing signs of superiority and the other dots are on the outside, so they're inferior, is what
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So that's the story we're telling ourselves about what we see right there. The green dots somehow got something going on that the dots on the outside do not have, because the dots on the outside are not allowed inside the circle for some reason, right? So let's go to the visual, the middle visual that's labeled segregation. What's the difference between the image that is labeled segregation and the one that is limited as labeled exclusion, right? What's the difference there?
It's almost like exclusion, but the difference is in the smaller circle where all the colored dots are, it's like they come together to connect, but they're still separate from the green dots.
Okay, good. All the different dots are in their same circle, but still separate from the green dots, which we have assumed is the place to be, right? We think something good going on inside that big circle because all the green ones are there. Must be something good going on. And yet the dots of other colors are not able to go there, and they all have to be with each other. See it? Now, here is one that is really has the potential to be dangerous. Let's go to the one that's labeled integration, all the way on the right-hand side at the bottom. What do you actually see? Tell me about the colors in the circles first.
So the other colored dots are within the boundary where the green dots are, but they still have their own wall around them.
Okay. Is there anybody who sees that differently than what Jennifer just described? She said, in this picture that's labeled integration, the colored dots are within the big circle where we assume something good is going on because all the green is in there. And yet there's still a boundary around all the different colored dots, right? What do you make of that picture? What impression do you have of perhaps if you were a blue, red, or yellow dot? What would be the feeling created there?
I guess it would be like included, but not really included.
Okay,
Like,
nice.
I guess it will be like in an education, like a special educations where we say we include kids in the classrooms, but they're there, but they're not really included.
It is that, okay, talk to me about why you think I said this to me is the most dangerous or possibly damaging image that there is. Why would I say such a thing? It's very judgmental.
People say it like it's a pretty picture, like, oh yeah, they're in the general education classroom, but are they really?
Because we're projecting inclusion, but it's not really there.
Okay, and who was speaking just right before that, who said we're making this look like a pretty picture, but it's not pretty underneath? Can I talk again to that?
Sorry,
person?
my internet's unstable. I'm a former SPED teacher, so like the top one reminds, the inclusion reminds me of undiagnosed kids, right? The exclusion reminds me of the, you know, I guess maybe like a resource class. Segregation looks like a self-contained classroom, and integration looks like what a true inclusion classroom may look like.
Okay, and am I talking to Wendy? Was
Yes,
that you, Wendy?
Yes, you were talking to Wendy.
Okay, so Wendy, can tell me why you think I said this integration image all the way on the far right on the bottom, to me, is the most dangerous of all of these images. Why do you think I might say that? It's very judgmental on my part.
Because that's like a principal telling a parent, oh yes, your child can be included. Yes, they're in the yes, they're there. They're there. Like, oh, they're definitely in there. I can assure you, your child will be included in all activities like all other children.
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm gonna extend what I think you're saying, and you correct me if I'm not describing what you really mean to say as well. So this image that's on the far right at the bottom, this to me is dangerous because it is the pretense or the pretending as if people belong, and yet it's clear that they don't. And how do we know that the multicolored dots, anything other than green, does not belong? How do we know they don't belong?
They're still grouped together and they're not, I mean, they have a line around them.
Yes.
I mean, they're put in a box.
Yes,
It's a circle.
Yes, in the picture, they have a line around them. Okay, so y'all, here's where we go to your skills as an advocate. What you know by looking at this is that there is a line of separation here. And in your real life, you will know if there is a line of separation because you have lived in the world long enough and you have experienced belonging and being left out your own self. And that's how you make that judgment. If it seems like people are allowed in, but they still don't belong and they're still not welcome, if it seems that way to you, I want you to own that perception that you have and trust it. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a fine line because actually people, as Wendy said, who may want the appearance of inclusion may actually be doing something more that looks more like integration, and you need to be able to know the difference. All right, how many of you, Judy, how many of these people, can you tell me how many of these people have young children, or is it many?
I think it's a variety because who registered isn't necessarily who's on the call, so I apologize.
No problem. I just want to make a general statement, and I don't want to make it to be irrelevant to the people who are actually participating. But if you are in a situation where you are experiencing integration but not belonging, you need to be able to recognize that for yourself. And if your child or the person that you care about or that you're advocating for or with is in a situation of integration when they really want to belong and be included, you need to be able to tell the difference. And what I'm saying to you today is you can. So when you go to explain this to policymakers, if you had this image on the back of a business card and you would say, this is what I'm about creating this top picture and not and busting up any places where all these things are happening, like are shown on the bottom, that person will see it more quickly than if you tell them a 10-minute story about your kid. So you can tell the 10-minute story, but when you leave, put that business card or this image as a leave behind in their hand. Do you see where I'm going with that, y'all? Okay, so off we go. I made an assumption, excuse me, that many people are interested in ensuring belonging in classrooms. So I have a little work for us. Sorry about that. The tea went down the wrong way, y'all.
That's okay. You take care of yourself. One person,
Belonging.
just so you know, one person responded, my son is 9 years old, my son is 12 years old. And another wrote, this happens regularly in special education, like in the so-called life skills classrooms. Visuals are an evidence-based practice.
Yes. Oh my goodness. In the life skills program. As if life is a program, right? Let's start there. As if life is a program. Keep in mind, those people that are struggling with the life skills program, school is a microcosm of life. It's a community. There is a way to learn any kind of life skill you need to learn right there in that room in that school at that time. So we can talk more about that as we move forward. So that is a good, Judy, I just want to say, I see that Jennifer is trying to still get in this.
No, actually she's in.
Oh, well, I don't understand why I keep getting the message that she's
Because I
trying to
think
get
she
in.
tried to log in from 2 different devices.
Oh, I got you. Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
but
All
she
right.
is
Oh, she's
definitely,
in. Okay,
definitely
hi,
in.
Jennifer. Hi,
Thank
Jennifer,
you.
too. All right, so 2 rules you have for working with people to create belonging in classrooms, because unless you're a teacher, you're not the one creating it, but you can work with people to help them learn how to create it and to help them think about how to create it better for the person that you're working with, right? So it doesn't matter if the person you're working on behalf of is a child or a grown person who wants to become to belong in a community setting, either educational or a living situation. These rules are pretty much the same way. They apply the same way. The first rule is, and I'm going to harken back to the person who talked about the life skills class and the research-based practice. Use effective strategies. This is the rule. Use effective strategies that develop students' gifts and help them participate more fully. If you are teaching a child or a young adult something that doesn't develop their gifts and talents or open up new environments to them, you are wasting their time. So don't do that. It's okay. You don't have to, martyr yourself if you've done it in the past. We've all done it. I have students that I taught as a young teacher. I need to go find those kids and get on my knees and beg for their forgiveness for some of the practices I employed. They were not effective and they were not designed to develop the students' gifts, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing as people who care about people with disabilities, and certainly as educators. That's our job, to find the flame, the little spark, and fan it until it is a roaring fire of talent. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And the next thing is, get out of the way. Don't continue to stand in the way when the environment is working for the person. Step back and let the environment work and let the person have their experiences, right? So
I have a question.
Yes.
Now, in that classroom setting, and as a teacher, when you're teaching so many talented children, how do you bring that talent because of the vast variety of talents within a classroom?
Yes.
Because nobody is the same.
Awesome question. That is right. It's it's Netta that I'm speaking to, correct?
Nedra.
Nedra.
Mhm.
Nedra. Nedra, that is the balance of the art and science of teaching. Teaching is both an art and a
Okay.
science, right?
Okay.
But I'm sending some strategies across right now. For example, I have an acronym to say, what 3 ballparks should we be in if we want to reach a lot of kids with a wide range of talent and gifts, right? And they all have things they have to learn. They're not in there as grown-up people fully formed. They're still forming. With one, I have to put one caveat on here or warning. There is such a thing as a classroom full of too many children. There is such a thing as a ratio that is out of balance. One teacher with 35 kids is too many kids to teacher. And we all know that. So when teachers are asked to do the undoable job, it is not, in my view, ethical to fault them for not being able to do the undoable. That is not ethical. That is an administrative problem that the result of which is being borne by the children and the teacher, right? So let me just put that underneath as a support for what I'm working with you on. There's such a thing as too much kid and not enough grown up. But when the grown up to kid ratio is manageable, at least manageable, we still must do effective strategies, and by that I mean evidence-based, to support students' gifts and help them learn and participate more fully. And here are some of them. We need to have relevant and meaningful assessment. We need to have effective instructional strategies. And we need to have varied instructional and support arrangements. Nedra, this is the one that's going to go the most to your question. How do you get so many varied kids to participate at one time? You have to vary the instructional delivery and also the support that you give them. And I'm going to show you some examples of those as we move forward. Yes, ma'am, Miss Wendy, what you got? Question.
For the meaningful assessment, I think it speaks volumes. The state allows minimal.
Oh, Wendy, your connection's not good.
For those in special education every 3 years to reeval.
Wendy, so your audio is very blurry. So can you type that that input into the chat so Judy can deliver it for us, if you don't mind? Would that work?
And a number of you have reached out to me that you're having internet connections. Please do not worry. We understand. If you need to log off and log back in, don't worry, we'll let you in. If you need to do it from a different device, no worries, we've got you.
And we're also recorded, right, Judy?
Yes, we are recorded,
Although,
yes.
when somebody can't, get connected, it's hard for them to participate too. So that
someone wrote something that I think is really important as well. 30-to-1 was the typical ratio in the public school I went to. This country's education system just generally sucks compared to other developed nations in Europe and elsewhere. You are spot on.
Amen. Preach it. A little bit louder for the people in the back.
Wendy wrote, I think assessment for special education students being done only every 3 years speaks volumes of what public education thinks of special education.
And that is a very interesting point. And Wendy, I want you to interact with me in another minute about that when we go forward here, because assessment, 3-year assessment for qualifying for special education services does not provide meaningful programming opportunities for teachers on a day-to-day basis. What kind of assessment does provide that for teachers? And we're going to go find that right now, right?
One other
So-
comment real quick, two other
Yes.
comments.
Yes.
Lack of funding and education. Lack of funding and education assistance support leads to the big classroom, especially tricky to special needs kids. A private message, curriculum-based measures makes most sense.
Yes.
And my child is more than de minimis and requires to make progress because he is a human. It worries me that schools cannot keep special ed teachers or staff. Oh, I understand that. My son is in 3rd grade and has had 4 different teachers. That is heartbreaking.
Yes, yes. And of course, the situation with COVID-19 has not helped us in terms of retaining teachers.
Exactly.
So there's a lot there in the chat. So let me hook it into this visual that I'm giving you, because what Wendy talked about was the assessment of students to qualify them for receiving special education services is only to be done every 3 years, unless there's a reason to do it more frequently. However, ongoing assessment is done by every good teacher. Progress monitoring, if progress monitoring is not being done with the students, that even young people in college that you're advocating for, a big chunk of what needs to happen is missing. So if you recognize that, that's what needs to be fixed, right? And what are some ways for us to get relevant and meaningful assessment? Someone on this call, so good, use that person as a resource, already knows that curriculum-based assessment is very, very helpful. And what that means is we take what the kids are supposed to be working on and we see what does this child know and what can they do within that curriculum. So we're not coming in with a test like a Brigance to tell parents what their kids are doing in the classroom in terms of progress in the general curriculum, because unless you have linked Brigance and the state standards.
I'm not sure that everyone is going to know what you mean, Charlene, by Brigance. You might want to clarify that a little bit.
Okay, Brigance is a test and a company that has developed some testing materials that have been used with kids with disabilities since, honest to God, time immemorial. I don't know how long Brigance has been around, but it's a long time. It's a testing package. Unless the administrator can assure you that the test that they're using is linked to the state standards. Judy, help me remember what the Texas state standards are called. It escapes me.
There's STAR, there's text.
Yes, the text, which is tested by STAR, right? So everything is driven by that, y'all. And so what we need to know is, what are the texts, what are the curriculum pieces that your child knows and can do and can work with? What are the most important ones? Let's put those on the IEP and have them make progress in that way. That's what curriculum-based or curriculum-driven means, right? Or for kids who are far, even for kids who are close to the curriculum level of their grade, you can use a portfolio. Let me see a big folder that has examples of this student's work, including video, if that's the way we can get this child to participate, is they do a presentation and we video it. Every kind of document or a product that a child gives you can be put together in a portfolio, even if it has to be in a box, it's fine.
Charlene,
right?
We do have some self-advocates on this in this session.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to expand, if you could, please, on in the workplace, because I know that you're focused strictly on at this point in educational setting and in school.
Yes, yes.
For people in this session who are self-advocates, how can they take what you have learned and adapt it into the workplace?
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that door, Judy. That's a beautiful door to be walking through. Those of you on the call who are people labeled with a disability label of some kind, keep in mind, again, as you already know, that's a label. And without belaboring this point too much, let me put something in your boiler pot again. This is for you to just think about and roll it over in your mind. A good question you might hold as you move forward through this process is, who created these labels and who do these labels serve? Right? Those two questions to me really help us figure out where are we situated in the power structure, right? And that helps us. So if you're in the workplace and there are difficulties or struggles, Judy, I'm not sure if this goes right to where you want to go, but I'm going to remember this and try to make a corollary to the workplace through every piece that I move forward in.
Perfect. Thank you.
What you may need to do in working with your employer is talk about or show some ways, some information about what you know and can do when there is not a pressure to perform. For example, a portfolio, you might have some examples of work you've done in other places. If it is a hard copy of work, or if you have data that you've input and it's 100% correct, you might want to show or tell your current employer, this is what I know I can do, and this is how I know I can do it. Again, keep in mind, as we move forward, you will also need to talk about, these are the accommodations I need in order to perform the best. So let's go back to the performance measure and say that performance is another way to see what people know and what they can do. You can watch as they perform and experiment, as they actually do a life skill. For example, paying for something at the school store with money, or in the community, managing their money and paying for the things that they want to buy and that they need, right? So we assess in a big way by watching what can people do and listening, right? By working from the required, so curriculum-based assessment in the workplace is, we look at your job description. Your job description is your curriculum in the workplace. It tells me what you need to be doing in order to perform correctly. So we need to look at that job description and say, here are your strengths. Here, these are the 5 things in this list of 7 that you do well. And you're going to need to get better at 2 things. And we make a plan for how you get better at it, right? That is the same thing as an IEP would be for a school person. And you would use that same line of thinking as an employee if you have in your job, right? Again, keep some samples of your work. If you're a self-advocate, if you can, keep pictures or copies of it so that you can show people, this is what I know and this is what I can do. Now, let's talk about effective instructional strategies, because that's the second piece. First, you need meaningful assessment, and it needs to be ongoing. Then you need effective instructional strategies. In the workplace, you need policies and practices that make sense and that help people become more effective at their job, right? So on a school level, Let me just tell y'all this right now. And I never say this, but I'm gonna say it now. Write this down. All right. All the books about effective instructional strategies have already been written. Period. We do not need one more person. Okay. In the COVID world, when we have to deliver instruction virtually, and we never did that before, yes, some new ground is being covered. But truthfully, y'all, in-person teaching, all of the strategies are already there. Nobody needs to discover anything new. What we need to do is do what we know that works, right? We need to have activity-based learning. Kids learn by doing and practicing, right? I'm not saying we have a free-for-all. There is plenty of educational literature that shows how to make classrooms activity-based. And this goes to Nedra's question. We have what is referred to as multi-level instruction here on the top left. Meaning, as a teacher, I know I'm delivering instruction to students performing on more than one level. Some kids are basic, some kids that are above basic, and some kids are not there yet. So my plan has activities for each set of those kids around the same topic, right? I'm delivering the same topic, but my requirements of kids are going to be different depending on their performance level, right? Now, again, there's such a thing as too many kids at too many levels in one classroom. So keep that in mind. There is such a thing as the undoable job. Those of you who are female, if this is a loose analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway because it is impactful, I think. If we think that we can, as a childbearing female, have a baby at full term in 3 months, we cannot, right? That is not a doable job. That cannot occur. There are some jobs in education, the ways that we've set them up, that teachers cannot do, but they're scared to say that because they're afraid of losing their job, right? So it helps if you can recognize this is the undoable job, right? And that helps. So that, okay, put that on the side because that doesn't impact this right here. Other ways to deliver instruction effectively is to get kids to role play, act them out, do simulations or experiments, right? In real life. Put kids into cooperative groups together, and there is best practice behind this strategy. I'm not saying these are free-for-alls, they're not. Each of these effective instructional strategies has a pedagogy behind it. That word means the way to teach, right? And teachers go to school to get good at what they do. So pre-behavior intervention, right? We want to, when we see this face right there at the bottom in the left-hand corner, when we see this little picture, this face, we need to be aware that if we don't do something, that this face is coming, this bigger face right here with the screaming, right? But we had a clue, and it was this face. If you fail to pay attention to this, when this happens, it is not the fault of the little person. It is the fault of the big people who are in charge.
Whoops, hold on, Charlene, by accident, you got muted. That was my fault. My apologies.
No problem. If you don't want me to talk to you, just tell me.
No, it was my mistake. I was clicking on something else, as my 26-year-old would say, my bad.
No problem. Okay, so guys, there are effective instructional strategies. These are not all of them. There's a bazillion of them out there. People need to pick some and do them. right? And pick them based on the student's needs, right? That's what I'm saying. So let me come back here and move on. We need to vary not only our strategies, but how we arrange people together. For example, this is also true in the workplace. There are people who don't work well with others in a team. They are not going to be social people in the workplace. Once we get a good job match, part of that job match is if you like working by yourself and you are not a good team player, that's okay. They have plenty of jobs where you can work by yourself that team player people do not want to do. So you can find it, but you have to know and talk about the fact that the team situation is not your best place. You maybe can do it for a little while at a time, but you need also some time to do independent work by yourself, right? Same thing with instruction. We want to see if a child gets related services like speech, OT, PT, adapted PE, school counseling. Can we get those services integrated into the regular day, or embedded is a better word? That integrated is not a good word. I'm going to change that. Can we use strategic seating for kids? This is also true in the workplace. Do you need a certain kind of seating away from where a lot of things are happening in an office? Can we use assignments that are highly individualized? Do our students work well with peer coaches? Or is it better for the student with the disability to be the coach? Right? That works both ways. And again, cooperative groups are not only are they an instructional strategy, but they're also an instructional arrangement. Okay, well, you see where we're going with this, y'all? We also use different or various kinds of support, right? We use peer collaboration. We have a person who could be helper. We have a teacher. We use a model. We have an advocate. We have friends. We use concepts like circles of friends. This kind of looking at the support that the person needs, right? What does the person need? And how can we get that to them? That's the question there for support, right? And that's true in every situation, right? Okay, does this person need a job coach at the beginning when learning to operate this dolly and carry four big crates on the dolly? Do they need a job coach at first? And if so, can we put the job coach there and then fade them back, right? This person needed a running buddy when he very first started running, and he very first started running at a young age, and it is still a skill that he uses and loves and enjoys, right? But at first he needed a buddy to run with him on the track team, right? Does this person need a peer coach? What is it going to take for this young woman on the autism spectrum to get up and do a speech in front of, on the Capitol steps? What kind of support will she need to make that happen, right? Those are the questions that we ask when we want to provide support to build belonging, right? So this is where we're bringing it back to our very beginning, where we stepped off the curb, right? When we went on this journey together. We're talking about, don't forget, building belonging, right? So here we go. Varied support arrangements, right? Now, what we're seeing here is that when we start these processes of building belonging with young children, we see how those, right? Here's Miss Vicky's class, where Miss Vicky went out of her way to make sure that this student with Down syndrome was connected to his buddies without disabilities. Those connections or other connections are made as the kids grow, right? This kid is currently in high school and has brand new buddies and is connected in a very deep way to his school community. Does he learn everything in the high school curriculum that everyone else is learning? No, he does not. And that is fine. So we're going to be like Miss Vicky. We have acceptance of differences when we start young that carries through. If that's what we want to do, is build belonging, right? So we get friendship development, and we also get growth for peers. Let me take a minute here to talk about this outcome, where peers get the benefit of having students with disability labels or significant differences as friends. How many people here, either you yourself, you have a label of autism, or you are here because of a person with a label of autism? If you just raise up your hand or raise your, yeah, okay. You can raise your hand on your screen if you know how to do that. And I'll see it on your picture. Okay, so we have two, at least two, maybe more. Right? Three people at least, and maybe more. Okay, so who knows, just off the top of your head, do you know this? How many people in the general population are being diagnosed or are being identified as on the autism spectrum at this time?
And some people private messaged me as well.
Okay, perfect. So we have lots of people who are attached to a person on the autism spectrum, or they are an autistic person themselves.
And
all right.
And one person wrote 1 out of 5, another person wrote 1 out of 8 people.
Okay, so suffice it to say, the numbers are high. Does that hold it if I say that there are high numbers of people being identified on the spectrum? If this child in the bottom picture here, this female child, is connected with and friends with a person with autism, the chances you just told me are 1 in 5 or 1 in 8, maybe. What are the chances that she'll be the parent of a child with autism? They're pretty high. So if we don't give her experience as a child who grows up with other kids who are on the spectrum, what service have we done her when she becomes a parent of a child with autism and doesn't know what to do or has no past experience in her life? Do you get the impact of that? Not only do we not serve the kid with the disability, we also don't serve their peers. When we do segregation, some kind of play-like integration, exclusion, we're not serving either group. So again, at that point, we need to ask ourselves, really, what is our business here? What are we trying to do? Right? So let me take a minute to do what I call a commercial. And I'm gonna do the commercial like this. Do you know, if you're a person here and you're working on advocacy for young children, do you know the mission statement of the school that your child goes to? They probably have a mission and values and statement. Do you know it? Judy, we might have some things in the chat. I can't see it for some reason.
Yeah, some of them apply to exactly what you're saying. Some I was going to hold off on.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, but
So-
in answer to your question, I haven't gotten an answer about the mission statement.
Okay.
So let me know when you want to break for more questions.
Let me just ask this question and then we can do a stop and go back.
Sure. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
How many of you did not know that your school probably has a mission statement? Maybe I should start there.
I think you've stumped some people.
Okay. So my experience, and there's a little bit of a different thing going on in Texas, which I'll tell you about in a second, but my experience is that most schools have a mission or a vision. And if they don't call it that, they still have something on their website that says something beautiful about what they're in business to do. And mostly it's about, teaching kids how to be participants in the global community and how to learn, and all kids can contribute and la, la, la. Does that make sense? Are you with me on that? Businesses that you all may work for also have mission statements that tells what they're about. Most people do. So what you need to know about that as an advocate is, if that mission statement says one thing and your child is experiencing something different that does not match with that mission, that's where you start with your advocacy. You say, something about this does not match. What you are doing, the things you are planning for my child, the way you are handling his or her education does not match with this mission. It does not match with who you say you are. If you say all kids can learn and be contributing members, yet you got on my child's IEP the same IEP goal year after year after year after year and never any progress on that goal, that does not match your mission and who you say you are. Both things cannot be true at the same time.
And for the workplace?
For the workplace, I would say the same. If you say that what we are about is we are creating the best widgets that there ever were in this workplace, and what we do is we have people who can deliver the best widgets that there are, then the people who are working there must know what is their part in making the best widgets, right? How do I contribute as a person on the spectrum or as a person with a disability of any kind? How do I contribute to this organization's goals? And the way that I'm being treated in my job, does it match with people who say they want to make the best widgets? Like if I need limited work hours in order to make more widgets, but you're not willing to give me limited work hours because you can't agree to that, then I can't give you my best to get you where you want to go in your mission, right? So I would say the very first step for people who are employed or who are in the workforce is to say, you work at McDonald's, they want to make a burger that is reliable, the same, delicious to the people who are buying them. And how do you fit in that mission?
Thank you.
And what do you need to contribute to that mission, right? So when you are advocating and asking people about their mission and their actions, if you've noticed those two don't match, keep in mind that you are shaking the roots of the tree as an advocate. This does not thrill people, just so you know. That's when you're going to be making change, right? When you effectively bring this to people's attention. If you're a parent, you can go to a school board meeting and deliver your 3 minutes. And you can say, this is what's happening. This is how it doesn't match the mission. How are you planning to fix that, school board? What can you do to help me fix that, right? You see where I'm going with that? So it's a tool for you as an advocate to be aware of who the district or the employer says they are, and how that fits with what you contribute, right? So
Can I, oh, I'm sorry.
of course, do some.
Can I
let's do
share
some
some of the
questions
comments?
and
Okay.
Comments, please, please, please. Yeah.
So acceptance of differences is crucial for children with disabilities in the school setting. Isolation and feelings of unworthiness or less than becomes embedded in their mind. The result is low self-esteem and a loner. I know this firsthand. Another,
Okay, and that is so absolutely true that I feel like I need to turn the presentation over to that person and I need to sit back because that is the school of experience talking.
That's right. Someone else had a great question. I do have a question. Due to pandemic challenges and physical distancing, how can we help kids with special needs to build friendship and growth for peers? Thank you.
Let me say the thing that I know the best about that, and that is that when kids are participating I'm assuming that they're participating virtually and in online classes, the more you can ask your teachers to include or write it in the IEP that there is a mechanism for breakout rooms where kids can work together, or the more planning that the teacher does for kids to connect offline together and produce work or produce products, whatever the products might be, the better off you are. And at the very least, immediately we need to do an IEP that brings to the teams awareness, high awareness that the child's connection with peers is suffering, and what can we do creatively to make that. I think we can't mitigate it completely because distance is distance and distance implies disconnection, but we can do whatever we can do technologically to connect kids, and we have to do that part really hard and deeply so that we don't lose those kids and they don't lose each other. And there are ways. I have some resources I'll give you at the end that I think, you should follow these people and see what their ideas are, because creative ideas are coming forward every minute about that. Yeah, good question.
Another suggestion was, wouldn't it be more of a PSA than a commercial? For those of you, PSA is public service announcement.
Yes, it is a PSA. Yes, I stand corrected. It's a PSA. I sit corrected. It's a PSA. Yes.
One person wrote 1 day at a time. Another person, which is very true. Sometimes I'm down to 1 hour at a time.
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute at a time.
Yep.
But that was a really good point. And
Yes.
then it's not even just as a parent. That girl, the one where you mentioned from Miss Vicky's slides,
Yes.
that girl could grow up to be a school administrator who could be putting in policies to ensure true inclusion versus just integration. And that is spot on.
You said it. Oh my gosh, you said it. What a good insight. Thank you for that.
Another person wrote, Conroe ISD is all means all. I used that when addressing the board.
Perfect. All
Very
means all
important.
is good. That's awesome.
Schools with mission statements didn't start into the 70s or 80s. I am a baby boomer and schools just wanted to educate children with the basics, not with trying to enhance or find a child's talent or gift. Boy, is that ever the truth. Privately, what about in the home setting? Someone is asking.
I mean, what actually,
if you could chime in, the person who wrote, what
yeah.
about in the home setting?
What do we want to know a little more specifically?
How can we help kids with special needs to build friendship and growth for peers?
In the neighborhood, right? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a great question, and it especially becomes important if the kids are not going to school with the kids in their neighborhood, right? So if your kid is going to school outside of the neighborhood, you already have a disconnection because those kids don't have a common experience, right? So friendship develops with shared experiences over time. Write that down. I hate to say write it down 2 times in 2 hours, but I have to, because that's how you make a difference in the
I'm going
community.
to type it in the chat box. What was that?
Get kids to have shared experiences over time.
Get kids to have shared
Yes,
experiences.
involved in shared experiences over time. So maybe you're inviting a couple of neighborhood kids in to make cookies at your house, you know, for 45 minutes or an hour. And maybe it's not going to change the world, but it's a start. So start small and get kids to do things together. So you have to know what your child is interested in doing, or you have to know what your own interest is. For example, the person who has interest in online role playing already knows that's what they do. That's what they like. That's what's fun for them. We got to figure out what's fun for kids and get them together doing it. You know, if they love a sport, let's get them involved in that sport. Even if they are not going to be the top player, maybe they can be involved in the sport in some other way. Can they be a ball boy? Can they be a ball girl? Can they be a person who takes, some people love numbers. Some kids love numbers, and they should be the statistician on the team, counting how many home runs. Even the little ones who like numbers can do that. How many home runs, how many misses, how many hits in the ball game, right? So shared experiences over time. And yes, you're going to have to organize some of these activities, you know, get together and have a mask making day, or a slip and slide in the backyard. And don't worry about liability and what if somebody gets hurt. Somebody's going to always fall down and hurt themselves. Let's not let that paralyze us into inaction. Right? All right. So we have more
about
questions.
10:51. So we have about another, 15, 20 minutes or so.
You have any more questions, Judy, or can I go?
We're good for right now.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Charlene.
No problem. So I'd like again for you to look at a picture and keep in mind at the beginning when we looked at that inclusion, those visuals to represent inclusion, integration, segregation, etc. I asked you, what do you see? Not what you think about this. What does it look like the story might be? Just tell me what you see right here. What is this a picture of? Anybody?
It's just some friends hanging out.
Okay. Again, suppose I can't see and you're describing this picture to me. What can you say to me to help me understand what this is a picture showing? What does this show?
One person wrote inclusion, another joy and happiness.
Okay. All right. This is right here is one of those times when this is a teaching balance. I'm going to try to make a teaching balance here. And I'm going to put some pressure on you as a group because you're missing my question. And I'm going to say it again, hopefully in a different way so that you can hear what it exactly is I'm asking you to do. Read me those responses again, Judy. It's not to say they're wrong.
No, I understand.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And we have a couple more that added in. We have inclusion, joy and happiness, friends, smiles, friendship.
Okay. Stop right there.
Group of people having fun, friendship and smiling, support.
Okay. Now I want you to be more specific. If I said to you, what is this a picture of? Or who is this a picture of? Or what's included in this picture? What would you say? At the very most basic level, what is on that photograph?
Girls.
Okay, girls. Good, Judy. Somebody else. How
That's
many?
what somebody answered, and then another person said indifference. Another person said acceptance, indifferences,
Okay, again,
girlfriends, and then the
stop.
number 5. Oh,
Stop
sorry.
1 second, Judy. Okay, those of you who are looking at the picture and telling me the feeling you think you see, if I am blind, that doesn't help me know what this picture is of, right? So once again, this skill is essential to be able to advocate for people, because you have to be able to describe, for example, a child's behavior, right? If you tell me a child is angry, that doesn't tell me a dadgum thing about what they did. You tell me what the child did. What did you see? What can you see, hear, feel, taste, touch? What can you see? Somebody said girls. Yes. Somebody said 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. What else do you see?
3 more people wrote in, girls with drinks, partying
Okay.
with 4 typical looking girls and 1 with Down syndrome.
Okay.
5
I see.
teenage, I'm sorry.
Go
There's
ahead.
a little bit of the delay on my end, so I apologize. I'm not trying to interrupt.
That's okay. Go ahead, Judy.
And then 5 teenage girls, looks like they're having fun at a pool party. Another person wrote, inclusion of all girls regardless of race, disability. They were wearing hairbands.
Okay, nice. Those of you who are in the wearing hairbands, 5 girls, some with drinks, looks like a pool party person. How do you know it's possibly a pool party? Where are you at, my pool party person?
Yep, that's me.
Okay.
Well, they're wearing bathing suits.
Good, stop right
Even
there.
it looks like they're outside.
Okay, good, stop right there. They're wearing bathing suits. Okay, if I close my eyes and I hear your feedback to tell me, this is a picture of 5 girls, some with drinks, wearing bathing suits. They are smiling. They are outside. Now I'm getting to develop a picture of what you're seeing, right? That is the exercise that helps you not only look at the behavior and success and capabilities and needs of your child, but also, if you're a self-advocate, of yourself. And it is a way for you to talk to people about what the needs are, either in the self-advocate world or in the education world. It's a way for you to talk to people clearly so that they can make a picture. Policymakers, y'all, don't have all day. You got to be able to make a picture of what you want for your kid. So you go into the school and you say, I want my kid included. That school can make up whatever they think in their mind about what included looks like, unless you tell them what it is your child needs, right? So when you look at this picture and you see 5 girls wearing headbands, some with drinks, they are smiling. 1 has Down syndrome, 4 look like they do not, right? They're outside. We think they're at a pool party. That is a good way to describe all of the pieces of this picture. The problem that we have is sometimes when we show this picture to policymakers, what do they see? What do you think they see? First, what do they say?
I'm waiting in the chat for.
Okay. Just jump in and unmute yourself and jump in if you think you have a handle on what some people will see when they look at this picture. This is huge because it tells the difference between people who think about in a belonging way and people who do not.
Hi, this is Michelle. I'm gonna give it a shot here.
Jump on in here, Michelle. Good girl.
Yeah, I think maybe they might see one person doesn't belong. One person's different.
One person is different. They see, if somebody looks at this picture and tells me what they see is Down syndrome, I know who I'm working with, right? I know who I'm sitting next to. You guys saw something else. You saw joy. You saw all kinds of other real things, right? Very correct. Joy, inclusion, belonging, smiling, girls at a pool party, all of that. The person, go ahead.
This is Nedra. Now, personally, I'm coming from a different aspect in a sense that I see, I wrote down the acceptance and differences, because not only do you have a young lady with Down syndrome, but you also have another young lady that looks to be of a different ethnicity. So we are looking at inclusion in other areas to where you could actually just assume, just because you see 3 Caucasian young ladies, they could be Jewish, they could be anything. We can't just go by their colors. So I was looking at acceptance and differences, because one could be German, one could be from another country. You just don't know. And so that's why I put down acceptance and differences, because in that own way, in that picture, every last one of them could have nothing in common ethnically or physically or in religious aspects. But they can have a lot in common, that we are close friends, that we can actually enjoy each other's company and things like that, and not look at those other issues as barriers.
No kidding. So you can look at this picture, as Nedra says, and see lots of commonalities and lots of differences, right? All in there. And we get the feeling that fun is being had because they're smiling, right? We don't necessarily know all the commonalities and all the differences, but we can look and see some physical ones. So, y'all, there was a piece underneath this that Nedra was talking about that I wanted to share based on what she said, and it has completely left my mind. I hate when that happens.
It happens to all of us.
Oh my God, I got COVID brain.
It's called being
and I
human.
don't even have COVID. All right. It's gonna come back to me, y'all. It is gonna come back to me. It's gonna come back to me. And when it does, you'll be the first to know. Okay, so one of the segues that I can make here is to say that Nedra is talking about viewing this group of girls in this picture and not making assumptions about what is going on. As opposed to sometimes when we take a look at a student, and if you look at this student in the white sweatshirt right here, you may not be able to tell, but he was born with cerebral palsy. And when his mother went to register him for kindergarten, they said he can't go to regular kindergarten. We don't do that kind here in regular kindergarten. You got to go to the school down the street. Now, this was in the great state of Texas, so I'm going to let y'all take all the heat when it comes to where did this happen, right? Now, that being said, that was an example of doing the eyeball test and saying that one doesn't belong here. You got to have some real guts to say a kid can't go to regular kindergarten. What, are they teaching thermonuclear physics in kindergarten now that my kid can't go to kindergarten? What, are you not going to play and nap and share snack and do all that stuff that they do in kindergarten? But that's a whole nother presentation. But anyway, here we go. So this kid did go to regular kindergarten because his mother and certain advocates that shall remain nameless supported her to make it happen for him to go in his neighborhood. So he grows and he grows and he gets up to this. If you look at him in this bottom picture, you're going to see he's like a 4th grader. And he experienced a thing in his class where he did an assignment and he got a very good grade. And so his teacher was giving back the assignments of interactive notebooks and said, and Nick, you got an A+, much better than I ever thought a handicapped kid could do. To the entire class. right? So Nick was mortified, and his mother was this, you know, big hotshot advocate. And he goes home and he says, this thing happened in my class and I really was embarrassed. And she said, well, I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do. You're in the 4th grade now, and I need to stop advocating for you. You need to advocate for yourself. Get in there and write the teacher a letter. So that is what he did. And while I'm not going to read you the whole letter, I need you to know that he always spoke like a Philadelphia lawyer, even when he was a little bitty, teeny tiny boy. So it turns out that although they did the eyeball test and said, you can't come to kindergarten here, he was quite smart. And they would have done themselves a favor to find that out before they said, go on down the street. So he writes the letter and he asks the teacher to please read a brochure that he brings her called People First Language, because he was embarrassed by being called handicapped in front of his schoolmates. All that is to say that the self-advocacy skills begin early. You know, how can we teach our kids to stand up for themselves and their capabilities and help people figure out what to do that is more inclusive? That's another way to build belonging, is to help kids learn how to ask for it themselves, right? Turns out this kid goes from he can't go to kindergarten here to like one of the top debaters and the only sophomore that was invited in the country to go to Botswana to a debate tournament, international debate tournament. He also had the great misfortune of having to choose from a full scholarship to Harvard or Yale. All this, y'all, from he can't go to kindergarten here. So don't believe it if it's not true, right? Do what you know to do so that kids can get where they need to be and learn how to be contributors. We talked about asking specifically for what you want and what your child needs. Actually, I did a really, really bad misspeak just now, and I'm going to point it out to you. What you want should never be said in a conversation with the school about your child. Everything goes from what your child needs. So never say, I want. Say, my child needs. That's the correct language there. These are some examples. We're not going through them because you're going to get this on the email, and I'm about to be overtime. But they are specific pictures, word pictures of what you want your child to be. For one example, my child needs to follow the same schedule as kids without disabilities. That's clear, right? All these are designed to build belonging for your kid, but they're a way for you to ask for what your child needs from the school so that they can understand it. And there's not a lot of room for interpretation. I want my child to be included is a big old bucket, and you can get anything out of that bucket. But when you say my child needs to follow the same schedule as everybody else, that's clear as a bell, and a school knows what to do with that. Now they can either say yes or no. Then you have another, discussion on your hands. But that's the skill I'm asking you to develop, is to be very specific about what you're looking for. If you're a self-advocate and you need a bus route and you need an accessible bus, when you go to the transportation authority in your area, you say, I need an accessible bus with a lift. And it needs to run X number of times. That's what you ask for. Not I need bus service, right? You ask for what you want exactly. And you try to, as much as possible, prevent the things that you don't want, right? My child does not need to be in an age inappropriate setting. My child is 7. They do not need to be in the kindergarten. My child is 15, they don't need to be in middle school, right? So what we are saying about inclusive education, or in a better way to say it, creating belonging, this is about proving that you can dream of something wonderful while still having your feet planted in strategy, technique, right there on the ground, but your head up there in creating a better world, right? I also want to make sure that if you have any questions, we get a fast opportunity to address those now. Any questions or closing comments?
If you'd like to, just unmute yourself or write it in the chat box. You all can now understand when I said at the very beginning that Charlene would be challenging your way of thinking and definitely get the gears in your brain churning. Truly an extraordinary presenter, because Charlene, you don't just present, you get to the root of it, what makes people tick, what makes them think the way they do, and then how they can apply it to various settings. And that is a true talent.
Thank you so much for that. Thank
And
you. It's a pleasure to do this work.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to have you and to work with you. Again, another one of the many reasons I love Mary Jane Williams for introducing me to you. And for those of you on this call, I think it's important to know that as parents, as self-advocates, as being just maybe I shouldn't say just, but being a caregiver of someone with a disability, it's really important to know that you've done the best you can at this point in your life. And as we have these sessions and you learn and you grow and you see different ways of doing something, you have the choice to either apply it or not apply it. We all have regrets. I have many regrets as a parent. I did the best I could as I continue to raise my son, adult son. He's 26 now with disabilities. I can't begin to tell you the mistakes that I've made when, you know, you think you're having the best of intentions. And then you realize, not the way I should have done it. And we learn and we grow and we do the best we can each day. Yes, there was a wonderful question. What if the child actually wants solitude? When I was a child, I was happy playing by myself with my own imagination, and I was perfectly happy eating alone, even as a teenager.
Perfect.
And I think that's a really profound statement. And Charlene, I'd like you to answer that, and then I would like to interject something after that, if that's okay with you.
I think what the person is noticing is that there are people who prefer different ways to be in the world, and solitude is a beautiful way, and it absolutely is wonderful when it's a choice. And when it is not a choice, it can be excruciating. But solitude by choice and is not isolation. It is a person just living who they are inside, and that is perfectly fine. And perhaps that person, I don't know how they feel about this, but perhaps that person has situations in which they interacted with others, but on their own terms. And if that is a choice, that is fabulous. That's something to be celebrated, because that is the person fully living themselves.
And you're being authentic and true to yourself. And there's a big difference between choosing to be by yourself versus forced exclusion.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Big difference.
difference.
I know with my son, I want him to have more friends. We've worked on it, and at times it works for him, at times it doesn't. So I have to go with the flow. Another comment, my son has ADHD and also gifted. I would agree with that, Mom. But I feel like his teachers often focus on the behaviors instead of his gifts and talents. How can I communicate with teachers to use more strength-based approach? Thank you so much, and that's an excellent question.
It is an awesome question, and I'm assuming that this is something that you've already asked them to do.
Yeah.
And so if that's true, and then I don't know what they said about whether they would do it or not. So
and this is something I'd like you to also bring up for the next presenter, because she's going to address some of those issues as well.
I think during the parent teacher interviews, they can just blah 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 talking about my son's behavior in school for 5 minutes. They didn't mention my son's so gifted in school in math, science. Yeah, he's very clever and he likes to help other kids in math class. So yeah.
So as an advocate and as a self-advocate, one really good talent is to know how to ask for something and listen for the answer. So I don't know if they said to you, yes, we will focus more on his gifts and try to give him more opportunities to display them. If they said that and then they didn't do it, now it's time for the next meeting that says, okay, let's all get on the same page, because as a mom, I heard you say you would do something, but now I see it's not happening. What can I do to help? A really good question is, what can I do to help? Right? And if I can't help, and if you have discovered that you're not able to do this thing, let's go back to the drawing board and talk again. I wouldn't just leave it there. I would go back and go back into the conversation and weave it back in to say, it's very important to me that his gifts and talents are recognized. Can you tell me a few ways that you could do that in the classroom? And when you do it, how does he react? Right? And so I guess what I'm saying is two things. Listen for their answer if they're saying yes or no. If you can't tell, then you ask. I'm not clear on what you're saying. Do you mean you will do this or you won't? So make them say yes or no. You know, you have to get an answer, because otherwise you're nowhere. Otherwise the answer is no. If you cannot understand what they're saying to you back, and then the answer is they're not willing, and then you go ahead and reflect that back to them and you say, it sounds to me like you're not willing to do what I think he needs, and I'm wondering why that is. Is there anything I can do to help? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, actually I engage a lot. I also provide my strategy as well, because from my son, the boredom is a big trigger, especially in math class, because he finished math assignment very quickly. That's why I said boredom. Yeah. You have to make him more challenging at enriched activity. So I brought a box of Lego to his class. So like him, when he finished faster, and then he can play Lego in the corner or in the hallway, or help other kids in the math. Or I also use the mindfulness, right? Like I said, at home, we've been practicing mindfulness by using the app called Smiling Mind. I say it really can help my son to limit the time, from the classroom to recess. Because, yeah. So I share with my experience with teachers. Yeah.
Perfect. Good. All great ideas. And then you wait to see if they say, we will try that also. If they don't, then you ask, will you try some of these? Which ones? And let's meet again in 2 weeks and see how it's going.
Just to follow
So
up.
that's how you circle back. Always circle back, y'all. As an advocate, you got to circle back and see what is the result of what we agreed.
Yeah, because the challenge is I don't want to break down the relationship with them. Let's always observe and step back, and then provide my input and wait, and then also follow up with.
That's perfect. That goes with your advocacy style, your personality style. That's perfect.
Sounds
Stay
good.
with that. Keep doing it.
Ling.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This presentation is awesome. I really appreciate that. It's really
Oh, thank
touched my
you.
heart.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Ling. It's so
Charlene.
nice to be here. Yes, ma'am.
If you could stop sharing your screen.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And that was wonderful, Ling. Thank you. We are going to take a 5-minute break, and then we are going to have Mary Jane Williams, who is going to share. Oh my God, you're not kidding when you say fabulous.
I know.
So, and no, I was not paid to say that. And
Either.
yes, neither were you. And,
but I'm willing.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll be back in about 5 minutes. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Charlene, thank you. And everyone, we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you all so much. So nice to meet you.
Thanks, Charlene.
Thank you.
Yes, honey. Thank you.